Audemars Piguet are best known for their bold designs, out-of-the-box approach with watches, and the design cues that make this statement and are recognizable from their iconic looks. This all started with the legendary Royal Oak in the times when mechanical watches were about to become redundant and replaced by more efficient, accurate, cheaper and lower maintenance quartz watches. This was in the 60s during the times of quartz crisis when mechanical watch manufacturers were struggling to survive. That AP, with the help of Gerald Genta, the famous jewelry designer of the time, designed, produced and released a product that no eye had ever seen or imagined before, called Royal Oak. This was the watch with exposed screws on the bezel, octagonal bezel with sharp corners and angles, and then exposed gasket between the bezel and the case, and then a watch made from ordinary metal of steel, yet costs more than many precious metal watches of the time. This although was a bold and a daring move by the company, but was such a success that almost 50 years down the line, the Royal Oak still remains in production, in exactly the same case, same design, same dial, same finish and surface treatment, same metal of steel, and even the movement, and enjoys the popularity like no other watch. Knowing this history and relating it to the roots of AP, and also knowing that the company hasn't introduced as such a new product in decades, when you are told that there's a new line coming up from AP, you would naturally have high expectations from the brand that have enjoyed success and popularity in many decades, primarily from their boldness in designs, innovativeness, and unique approach towards how the watch should look. And of course, the workmanship that is so high level that it can change a watch made from ordinary metal of steel into a precious watch, which even then costs more than precious metal watches. And this does not represent the hype from the inflated pricing. Rather, this truly represents workmanship that is seldom seen in steel watches. When you start to look at and explore the code 1159, there are characters and design attributes that are on offer that indeed make it a unique and an interesting watch. Starting off with the case, although what you see from the top view or wrist view is a large circular dial with almost no bezel. When you dig down further and start to look at the rose gold case, while the top and the bottom sections are circular, they sandwich an octagonal central barrel which holds the dial and the movement. And this is a nod to the octagonal case shape of Royal Oak. The lugs are interesting and are hollowed, and this is another design character that can only be seen while looking at the case sideways. The interesting part is that while the lugs are soldered on the top side, they are simply hanging over the bottom section, and there's a small air gap that you can also easily notice. If you didn't spot already, the screws in the lugs holding the straps are also hexagonal in shape, which is another nod to the bezel screws on Royal Oak. Another revolutionary design character that again simply can't be perceived or identified from the top view, or let's say from the wrist view, is the double curved sapphire crystal, and this is something that is never seen before. The result is that while it reduces distortion on the wrist view, when you look at it sideways, there's an optical experience on offer that is truly unique and interesting, thanks to domed shaped interior of the crystal and vertically curved exterior. When you look at it sideways, there's a play of circular light rays on display that move and provide an optical illusion as if the crystal is sticking outwards from the case like a convex lens. But when you turn it to its top view or feel it, it almost looks flat. This is truly a one-of-a-kind experience, but again, it needs to be seen in real life, and this simply won't show in regular wrist shots or photos on internet. Now while the case and the crystal are interesting, when you talk about the dial, almost all the dial elements take a U-turn and offer basically nothing that has luxurious, iconic or statement looks on offer. The dial design, layout, proportions for the subdials the shape of dial hands and hour markers, the placement of date window, and selection of font for the digits on the dial and subdials, and also the inconsistency between the dial fonts on the subdial and date window, and then the unnecessary busy graduations, all make it not just very average looking watch, but also provide aesthetics that typically stand for more of a fashion brand looks. Although subjective, the dial design and the overall execution here is not consistent with the case or the crystal. That is, you can look at the dial from top view, side view, or even upside down. It still looks very ordinary and anything but a standout design. The dial surface is beautifully lacquered, and then there are hour markers and dial hands that are rounded in a very consistent treatment. But that's really all about it. There's also no lume in the dial, so unfortunately I have no lume shot to discuss in this video. In terms of sizing, the watch case measured at the outer extremity of the bezel is 41.3mm, so it is a slightly bigger watch than its marketed size of 41mm, especially when you factor in the sizes of the crown and pushers. The size of crystal, or let's say the size of dial, is 38.4mm, so this is more like an all dial watch with a large face and the bezel that is almost non-existent or noticeable. The lug-to-lug height of the watch is 49.8mm, so at close to 50mm, it is a tall watch relatively. For reference, this is about 2.5mm taller lug-to-lug than 41mm Rolex Submariner, although both watches are 41mm in case sizes. The horizontal size of the watch with crown included is 44.1mm. The watch weighs at 126 grams on my scale, so while being made of gold, it is not a heavy watch by any means. If you are comparing the Code 1159 with Royal Oak and the fact that Royal Oak was also not a success initially and then became a massive hit for the brand, there are differences in how these watches are designed and approached with their introduction. Royal Oak introduced a whole new concept of integrated bracelet watches and was a bold and aggressive watch in its looks from top to side to even its bracelet. It had design attributes that were never considered to be a watch design, whereas the Code does not have the statement or unique looks in the first place. It does have some interesting characters like octagonal case barrel, hollow lugs, and double curved sapphire crystal, but none of these actually show in your wrist wear. Rather, you have to find them, as opposed to Royal Oak, where the looks were identifiable from 20 meters away. With Royal Oak design, there was a vision behind it, and all you think of when seeing a Royal Oak is a diver's helmet and a ship porthole, which were the design inspirations behind the sketch of Gerald Genta. But then when you look at Code design, and especially the dial, it is a mess without any vision or design inspiration. Well, it does have design inspiration, but sadly, this time, what you would think of are entry-level fashion brands. When you start to look at the movement, the in-house caliber 4401 is possibly the star of the show and is indeed executed with exceptional details, aesthetics, looks and finish. And looking at this movement, you truly start to feel that AP really mastered the skill of watchmaking when it comes to hot horology characters. The all-new movement is automatic integrated column wheel chronograph with flyback function. The integrated automatic chronograph movement means that it is built as a whole in single piece as opposed to chronograph module assembled onto a time-only base movement, which is the case with most offshores and Royal Oak chronographs as of early 2021. This not just means aesthetics, as all the components are designed to align and complement each other, but also a more seamless and fluid integration of movement components. A column wheel and vertical clutch mechanism that also ensures that there is no jumping of chrono seconds hand due to meshing of teeth from the gear train. The movement operates at 4 Hz to offer 70 hours of power reserve and is offered with 22-karat skeletonized gold rotor. In addition to aesthetical marvel, the operation of flyback chronograph in itself is a work of art, and there's simply nothing not to admire here. Under the macro, the rounded hour hand comes with beautiful level of details. And while the rounded hands are not the easiest to finish, there's absolutely no flaw on site, and the surface finish is indeed impressive. The minute hand comes with some smudge marks. That is of course not ideal. And then there's some minor scratches on the minute hand too. These scratch marks can't be seen from naked eye, but again, since these were not there on the hour hand, they shouldn't be here as well. The seconds hand comes with decent level of finish, but the edges of hand are not the best machined, and I think there's an opportunity to remove the high spots and make it a little more refined, although again, you can't see these imperfections with naked eye. The chrono hands are polished too and come with acceptable details. And similar is the case with applied logo for Audemars Piguet, and there is as such no flaw or concerning deformity on site, which is indeed nice to see. On the wrist, the 41mm code 1159 has a wrist presence that is hard to miss. Since the watch is also dial only, you can see the face of the watch as relatively quite large than typical 41mm watches. My wrist size is 6.5 inches and wristband is 55mm, and since the watch lug to lug is a touch under 50mm, you can see it does not stick out of my wrist. But since the watch also have a relatively thicker case at 12.68mm, it does have a substance that it offers on the wrist. The case thickness at over 12.5mm is however manageable, and it's not a very thick watch and can still slip under the cuff. Thanks to double curved crystal, you can also experience how the crystal plays with the light from the side view. And except for the dial experience, this watch is fun, and I personally quite like the case and how it fills the wrist. Audemars Piguet Code 1159 is a long-awaited line from the Holy Trinity watch manufacturer that are otherwise known to be simply a Royal Oak company. And before its release in 2019, there were exceptionally high expectations from the brand for all the right reasons. The problem with being successful is that the standard for yet another milestone becomes even higher, and similar is the case with this release. And while the code line does offer interesting case and the crystal, there's less than expected characters that make the statement and provide the watch any iconic or timeless looks. The dial is messy and seems like a product where too many cooks spoil the food. While it does carry with it a beautiful movement, at this price point, you'd be pushed to find a reason why you would buy a code and not other or arguably better alternatives. It lacks iconic looks, it lacks the character, it lacks the timeless design, it lacks any history being a new product, and overall, it lacks a personality. So will I personally buy it from my hard-earned money? I probably would if I knew nothing about watches and only fell for the brand name. Looking at the dial here, I have to say, you are truly missed, Genta.